Hi there. I have two long videos that I've made recently that I have decided not to publish. And that's just because it's 25 to 30 minutes of going into unnecessary detail where I'm just trying to say some things on the theme of inclusion and exclusion. So I'll sum it up here so that you'll know what's missing in the videos that I plan to put out there. The first was saying some things about how I see other people as potentially not being INFPs, even though they identify themselves as such, and other people seeing me as not being an INFP, even though I identify as such. And I've walked through some of that sort of thinking before. Part of what I'm getting at there is that I made what I thought initially might be an INFP channel and then became an INFP channel for INFPs, kind of talking to the category. And then I find that a lot of the messages that I get out there are universalizable, so to speak, meaning that while my intent is to speak to INFPs, it's not exclusively to that audience. It applies broadly. It's partly about what it means to be human. And I think that that's maybe not a bad thing overall. Otherwise, I don't think that it's possible for me to speak just exclusively to an INFP audience in a way that locks out validity or resonance with all the other types. So that's part one. Part two is something that I co-opted from the podcaster or YouTuber Skimmerlet, who makes all sorts of interesting content videos. He's an INTP, he's worth checking out. And I will, rather than repeat what he had put together, which I've recontextualized anyway, what he was getting at was that there is a secular approach to life, a secular pragmatic approach, and there is a spiritual and, let's say, ecclesiastical approach to life. And that there are, let's say, powers that be whose interest is to make people believe that the spiritual path, that of oneness and dissolution of the ego and following in all things of being a good person, it's encouraged to be the correct path rather than taking that of more pragmatic self-interest or turning away from those spiritual elements. And Skimmerlet elegantly argues that people should take that pragmatic route. The spiritual path is a false path for most people, and it sets them up to be preyed upon by people of power, wealth, and means that don't take that path, but they exploit those who do. Now, there are some people who do successfully take that spiritual path, and they end up being held up or exploited to showcase to others that this spiritual journey is the correct one to be on, where the truth of the matter is that the spiritual journey yields its rewards for very few people. Most people who take this journey are on a path that will not yield them the rewards that they hope, because ego dissolution is impossible when the whole journey is an ego-driven journey. And a lot of what Skimmerlet's logic and perspective are, I think, are irrefutable. I see myself as being somewhat guilty among the class that Skimmerlet accuses of those who encourage other people to take the spiritual path. That is, even though I don't talk about it explicitly, there's something implicit in my frame of reference, in the way that I come to this channel, in the way that I approach life, that is that has a spiritual angle to it, and it simply isn't right for some or even most people to take. I've been leading people down a false path, potentially. So I need to step away, or at least here say that there are alternatives to the path that I have put myself on. A final thought from Skimmerlet, and I also think this is correct and has been self-evident to me for a long time, is that the spiritual path is one where there is an apotheosis, but it's for very, very few people, and it isn't what you think it is. And by that, he is correct. If we are to treat this as a spiritual path, we all end up with the same outcome in the end. But the spiritual journey itself, how to put this, it leads to ruin. And I see that for myself, the path that I have taken, it doesn't lead to salvation, eternal life, or anything, any good outcome at the end. Yet it is the path that is correct for me because I believe it yields for me the largest payoffs. There's something about having this particular mindset where the pragmatic approach to life just is not really an option for me. So, all a long way of saying, this goes back to the themes of inclusion and exclusion, that you need to chart your own path, and your own path probably should be one that is more secular than it is religious or spiritual. Get stuff done in life and do the things that you believe that you don't want to miss out on in the life that you've got because you have one. For me, the path that I am on, I would not recommend for people except for those others who really don't have another option. Because this path too, I believe, will lead to ruin. I don't see myself wearing wings anytime in my foreseeable future. I don't think I'm going to be joining the harp and choral teams, or the harp and chorale up in the clouds someplace based on the path that I am on. It's simply that which the path that I am on, and the alternatives are not available to me, and that's why I'm on it. Anyway, that's my thumbnail sketch, saving you 30 minutes of my prattling on about all sorts of detail. And there are some sobering thoughts, but realistic ones. So I hope that may be at least marginally interesting, and I will see you in a future video with maybe a more cheerful or at least a different theme. Bye for now.